This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. The Deputy Director for Drug Crimes has been arrested for corruption. A man rapes and murders a young woman in the most savage of manners. And those American dollar bills that nobody would take, well, guess what? Now they will. But firstly, our headline story. Arrests don't come much bigger than this one, as the Deputy Director of Anti-Drug Crimes was arrested with 4 other officers for demanding large sums of money to free foreign prisoners from jail. Prisoners who they themselves had arrested for drug offences. The police officer's scam was very simple indeed. Arrest someone, then extort money from them to set them free. And at the head of this criminal activity was quite remarkably not some beat cop, but the Deputy Director of Anti-Drug Crime, a Major General Van Colsel. Numerous cases of their legal activity have been cited, but one case clearly shows how incredibly corrupt this senior officer was. Back in October of 2023, 4 Chinese nationals were stopped in their car in central Phnom Penh. 4 men were taken from that car and escorted to the anti-drug department to be searched. That search revealed a small bag of white powder, and the victims were all charged with illegal possession of drugs and sent to a detention centre. The next day, the corrupt officers again met with the jailed men, asking for money for their release, a whopping $10,000 per person. In exchange for this big bag of money, the prisoners would quite simply walk out of jail. No charges, no record, no nothing. But after some time, the prisoners could only raise $33,000, not the $40,000 requested. The corrupt officers were not happy with that and asked the victims to give them power of attorney to withdraw more money from the victims' bank accounts, which is unbelievably brazen. So, how much money did these corrupt officers get away with? Well, in this one case alone, the officers took a total of $42,700 from their victims in exchange for their release. And if you think that is a lot of money, in another case cited by the courts, these officers are accused of demanding $100,000 to secure an imprisoned man's release. The depth of corruption in this case is staggering, and how vast the sums of money involved were. But now, the laws they used to intimidate and to extort their prisoners are the very same laws that could potentially send them to prison for an awful long time. In this week's Crime Desk, there has been rape and murder down on the farm. Blood flows freely at the hands of a jealous husband. And that money we did not want, well, now we want it. A man has now confessed to the rape and the murder of a woman on a lonely mango farm. Police in Prishionik province this week arrested an 18-year-old man suspected of murdering a 21-year-old woman who spurned his sexual advances. Kampong Sila's deputy police chief said that the suspect has now been identified as a Mr. May San, an 18-year-old worker on the mango farm who was originally from Battambang province. And what he did to his 21-year-old victim was truly shocking. He had watched the young woman one night as she left her bedroom on the second floor of the dormitories that they both shared to go and take a shower at the shared bathroom, which was located on the ground floor. The victim walked into the bathroom, not knowing they were to be her very last moments on earth. And the suspect then walked in after her, and he violently accosted her, hitting her around the head as he forced himself upon her and forced her to the floor. And there on those cold bathroom tiles, he ripped at her clothes and savagely raped this defenseless young woman. After the rape, the victim screamed at her assailant, saying that she would take him to court for what he had done to her. But that was a big mistake, as he then stepped forward and clamped his hands around her neck and strangled her to death so she would never speak. He took her lifeless body and dragged it 100 meters to a murky pond, and there with one heave he threw her body into the water. But it was not long before he was suspected of this most heinous of crimes, and he has now been arrested and under questioning has confessed. He faces life imprisonment. Another horrifying murder for you this week, and that was one where a man stabbed his ex-wife to death in a jealous fit of rage. The incident occurred one quiet Sunday night in Kandal province. The tale of horror that was to unravel does not leave just one woman dead, but also 4 young children now without a mother. It all began when the suspect, a 39-year-old security guard, rode his motorcycle to the rented room of his ex-wife. He had driven there with the sole purpose of seeing if she was with another man. Now, you must note what I just said there. He went to his ex-wife's apartment. They were, in fact, no longer married and had been divorced for many months. But the assailant was still consumed by jealousy, as he believed his ex-wife was with another man. And she was. When he knocked on the small apartment door, it was apparent that another man was there. The suspect then pulled out a large kitchen knife and savagely plunged it into his ex-wife's neck. He withdrew the bloody blade and then frantically started stabbing her in the chest. And it was not long before the poor woman fell to the floor dead. Her male companion tried to help, but he too was violently stabbed, and he ran to seek help from the police. The perpetrator was soon arrested. He confessed to the crime, saying he was jealous that she was with another man. The 4 children that this couple had when they were married now have to bury their mother and see their father locked up for many long years. Remember last week we spoke of American banknotes not being accepted by banks if they had the smallest tear in them or had the tiniest of stains. Notes with any rip or any mark, so small even that a particularly keen owl with a microscope would not be able to spot any defects, would be rejected. Well, we now have an update, which is nicely summed up in this headline. National Bank of Cambodia issues emergency measures to solve problems of tourists' rejected dollars in Siem Reap. Yes, emergency measures are to be taken after merchants who have been complaining for 2 decades about this infuriating situation are now to be relieved of their anguish. It really did get that bad. People became paranoid about damaged notes, as nobody would accept any American currency if it had any mark on it, no matter how small, because you then had the burden of trying to pass it on to someone else just to get rid of it. Simply, it was all very bizarre. Well, now the National Bank has 4 mechanisms to correct this situation. Number 1 is Siem Reap Commercial Bank is to accept old and dirty US dollar bills without charge. Number 2, old dollar bills the commercial bank will exchange for new banknotes. Thirdly, all banks in Siem Reap are to place $20 bills and $50 banknotes instead of just $100 US bills into their ATMs. And finally, number 4, they will advise hotels, restaurants, and so on. But let me take you back to number 3. And that was banks are to put $20 and $50 bills in their ATMs in Siem Reap. Now, this may seem odd, but some banks in Siem Reap only put $100 bills in their ATMs. And this caused huge inconvenience to not only tourists, but all those that deal with US dollar bills, which is pretty much everybody. As to why they did this is a mystery, but someone must have benefited somewhere, I guess. So these latest changes to the law are maybe long overdue for some, but are extremely welcome by all, as the dollar bill paranoia of Siem Reap could at long last be over. Have you noticed of late, over the past 2 weeks, there has been an awful lot of rain? But you yourself probably live in a city. And because you do, when the rain falls, it slips off both concrete and tarmac. And then it promptly disappears, and you never see that rain again. But in the countryside, it is a very different story. And as of late, the rain has quite simply not been going away. The volume of water is way more than the land can tolerate, and this has led to major flash floods. 4 districts in Kampong Tom province have been devastated by those flash floods, affecting more than 600 families and destroying 800 hectares of rice fields. The director of the Provincial Department of Agriculture told us at the Khmer Times that the floods have severely damaged 16 communes and 42 villages. Many families had to be evacuated to higher ground. According to the Department of Water Resources, the water level at the Siem River at Kampong Tom rose to over 13 meters, rising an astonishing 3/4 of 1 meter in a single day. And that huge volume of water caused a flash flood that washed over 600 homes and devastated 800 hectares of arable land. And 800 hectares is 8 square kilometers left underwater. The water is now said to be subsiding, and to the relief of farmers, normality is slowly returning. But they look ever skyward, wondering, when will the next big storm come? It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. Rightio, and here we go with the weather. And what you see on your screen there is the view from my window. That lovely spirally thing's a staircase that goes up to the 3rd floor, don't you know? I built a bar up there. I was a screaming alcoholic at that time, and guess what? I was so drunk I could never get up these stairs. Yeah,
That's what being an alkie's all about. Now, the view from my window tells the story. Look at it. There is rain, it is clouds, and it is grey. And if we go to the weather report itself, we get a finer view. Please note those blue bar things there actually tell you the percentage of rain that's going to fall, but you don't even need that. Look at the pictures on the lower line. And what you see is thunder, lightning, and rain. The high for temperatures has now dropped to 33 degrees, but humidity is right up there at 88.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly roundup.